What is going on, Hive Warriors? So I get this question a lot. Is there any possible way that I am gaining weight and there is nothing that I can do, or everything that I do doesn't make me lose weight, right? I get this question so much because a lot of people are struggling out there when it comes to weight loss. So I'm going to tackle something that may be misleading you in the thought that even if you had this issue, you won't be losing weight. And I'm going to tackle what would be the case where no matter what you do, you will continue to gain weight. No matter how much of a caloric deficit you're in, there is nothing you can do at all for this particular situation. I'm going to tackle all those ranges so you know exactly what you're dealing with, and if you can lose weight, even though it's a little bit harder, and if you can't lose weight no matter what you do. Let's jump into it. First thing we're going to touch on is hypothyroidism, right? So your thyroid. So there's an imbalance in your thyroid. There's an issue with your thyroid. Believe it or not, it could go in two directions, right? There could be an imbalance where it's absorbing a lot of calories. Therefore, you actually end up losing weight, right? You lose weight quickly because of your thyroid issue, but you could also gain weight because it also reduces your metabolism. But please understand that even if you have hypothyroidism, it only reduces your calorie allowance by about 200 to 300 calories. So if you had a height and weight where you could determine, okay, this is my height and weight, and if I'm at a 3,200 calorie consumption per day based off of all the things that I do, I should be able to lose weight. Well, if you're right on the cusp, right, and that's your number that puts you right on the cusp to losing weight, healthy weight, where you're not going for rapid weight loss, but you could unfortunately be off by 300 calories if you have a thyroid issue. So then you have to factor in the thyroid issue, and to be safe, you chop off about 300 or 400 calories from that number, and you can essentially still lose weight. So you can do it. It's much harder than the next person. It definitely is much harder than the next person, but you have to check to see that you have hypothyroidism. You have to get that diagnosed to see if that's a thing that you have. But yes, that is a thing that can affect the caloric intake. So all of the metrics will be off because of your thyroid issue. But again, it isn't something that is so much. It's more modest. It's a modest difference of 200 to 300 calories. Now, let's talk about what happens when you're in a space where there is nothing that you can do at all. Now, I've touched on this before, but I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to expand on it a little bit because there's two versions of it. I only talked about the one version that's not because of a medical mishap. The one version I talked about is just hormonal. All right, so there is a thing called lipedema and lymphedema. Now, lipedema is the one that I touched on. Lymphedema is the one that I did not talk about because the video was more structured off of the natural way that you could get this disease or this disorder. Now, lipedema is simply where you are gaining body fat. Normally, it's in the arms or the legs, and you gain body fat even if you're not gaining weight per se or are at a caloric surplus. No matter what you do, you're gaining body fat. Now, this is the reason that this happens. Obviously, it's a disorder, and unfortunately, it's not tied to energy intake or energy, release. It is simply a disorder based off of your fat cells. And just a quick rundown so that you understand how fat accumulates and clumps together to become the subcutaneous fat that you could actually grab, which is subcutaneous underneath the skin. The way that happens is you just have a bunch of fat cells all the time. Even if you're super lean, even if you're at 4% body fat, you have all your fat cells in your body still. They're just incredibly shrunken, right? They're shrunken and they only expand normally when fatty acids go in there so that they could store the energy. And whenever your body requires the energy, they release the fatty acids, break it up, throw it into the bloodstream, send it wherever it needs to go for energy. And that adipocyte or fat cell shrinks. However, when you have lipedema, what happens is that fat cell not only expands, not because of energy, just because of an imbalance, usually with the lymphatic system, and that actually just expands with fluid, just fluid. But not only does it expands and stretches and expands bigger than normal, bigger than what it would normally could even expand on its own if it was just containing fatty acids, which means you actually become even bigger in those areas, and they're all clumping together and all expanding and stretching. So now you get these abnormalities where your legs might be massive, where you look almost like it's obese. You're in the obese range of what an obese person will look like in the legs, but you can have full-blown abs. You could be completely slim up top. Or the same thing with your arms. Your arms could just be massive, but you could have like super, super slim legs. And this is because it triggered in the arms or it triggered in the legs. And this is just an imbalance in the lymphatic system. Now, lipedema tends to happen because of genetics, and it also triggers during a hormonal events, right? So you can get it either via puberty or when you become pregnant and have a child, or during menopause. So just like massive hormonal events. And I know what you're thinking, if you're a guy out there, all of those hormonal events sound like women. Yes, other than puberty, but which is the reason why 99% of men do not suffer from lipedema at all. It is almost an exclusively female issue. But even taking that into account, only 10% of females actually have been diagnosed or deal with lipedema. So 90%, you have a 90% chance that lipedema will not be a thing that affects you. But lipedema does affect primarily women over men. Now, what about lymphedema? Now, lymphedema is almost like lipedema, except lipedema has issues where there's some pain even attached to this growth, to this abnormality with all of your fat cells and the body fat and that you can see visually. That there's pain attached to that a lot when it comes to lipedema. When it comes to lymphedema, though, it tends to sometimes have no pain associated with it, but it does have the same kind of visual disheartening situation where you're seeing your legs get huge even though you're at a caloric deficit or your body is slim up top. And that comes from medical issues where you went through a surgery or you did something and there was something that went wrong and it triggered an imbalance in the lymphatic system. So one is natural, which is the one that I was talking about in my previous video. The other one is unnatural and usually comes from a medical situation where something was being done for something else and it triggered because of an error or something went wrong during that medical procedure. So that's the difference between the two. Now, keep in mind, if you do have these, for the 10% of women out there, but for people who are maybe thinking, do I have this? Because I can't seem to lose weight no matter what I do. It's normally in the extremities. If you're seeing that your belly is huge and you don't understand why, and is it because of lipedema? No, it's more than likely not lipedema, because it's usually either from the waist down or from the shoulder down, right? And also the extremities, like the hands and the feet, also normally don't get it as well. Actually, this is one way you can really tell if somebody's suffering from lipedema, is if you see that, but yet their hands look normal and they don't gain weight. The hands are not proportionately fat with the arm. The arm is like massively big, but the hand is normal. That probably means that person may be suffering from lipedema, because it is not proportionate. It'll just trigger a certain spot from here to here, and that's it, right, on both sides, and you won't see it on the torso, but you'll just see it on the arm. So it's arms and legs, So if it's your stomach and you're like, no, this is my stomach, I probably have lipedema, I'm struggling with this, that's why I can't lose weight. If it's in your stomach, it's not lipedema. If it's in your arms and legs, it might be, but still you got to get it diagnosed. And if it's not in your hands and it's in your either arms or legs only, it definitely might be. So what can you do to fix it? For the 10% of women out there and the 1% of men out there, what can you do to fix it? The unfortunate truth is that lipedema has no cure. It is the only thing where you can gain weight, because it'll actually add weight onto the scale, but also visually show that you are getting bigger in those areas, but you just simply cannot lose the weight at all. There's nothing you can do, no amount of exercise you can do, because it's not energy related. It's not related to fatty acids providing energy. It is just an expansion, a stretching, and an induced fluid into each of those adipocytes, which is creating the visual representation of you looking like you're overweight. So there is nothing you can do other than just liposuction, but that is not even foolproof, because you already have that disorder within your body, your hormone. That disorder exists, and what you do when you remove fat cells from liposuction, the fat cells will simply regenerate, and you won't be there right away, but you're more than likely gonna still get there again, and then you will have to do liposuction again. And I'm trying to be super cautious with how I talk about this, because at the same time, this is a really hard situation for a lot of people to deal with. A lot of people deal with this, and it hurts them psychologically. It hurts them mentally, because it's such a tough thing to walk around with when you know that there's nothing that you can do, or very little that you can do, and even the thing that you can do will be very expensive, and it doesn't even guarantee its full removal, as it could come back later down the line. So hopefully this video was helpful, informative, and it helped you understand what could be going wrong if no matter what you are doing, you're not losing weight, you're gaining weight. Even if you're at a caloric deficit and you're doing everything possible, those are the only three things that could be derailing you. It's either hypothyroidism, it's either lipedema, or lymphedema. And if it's not those three things, and both lipedema, lymphedema, super rare, and hypothyroidism is modest, so you can still overcome that caloric discrepancy that comes from hypothyroidism, but you just have to make sure. If you're just on the cusp of your weight loss calorie goals to lose a little bit every day, you might be within the range of gaining weight still because of hypothyroidism. But hopefully this video clears any of that stuff up. Other than those elements right there, if you're gaining weight, it is because you are simply overeating. You might think you're not, but you trust me, you are. Because what happens is, even in studies, people have chronically underreported by 50% how much they're actually consuming. So they'll say, oh, I'm consuming this much, but when actually put under a microscope, they end up actually consuming more, because there's little things that our brains do psychologically to help us continue to eat, right? You won't even remember the things that you ate when you were in a car. You won't pay attention to things that you're licking. Like if you're putting peanut butter on a sandwich and you lick the spoon, you won't care to measure that. Sometimes oils that we add to foods, we're not necessarily tracking that. If we grab a few chips or we grab some fries over here and over there, we're not necessarily tracking that. We tend to only really focus mainly on our main plates, our main meals that we're eating, where it's like you're consciously eating something. If you're opening a bar, you are consciously eating that protein bar or that fitness bar or whatever. If you sit down and you're eating a plate, you're consciously eating that plate. So you'll remember those, but you'll forget the peanuts that you grabbed this morning, or you'll forget the fruity drink that you had when you were driving, or you'll forget different things. So we chronically underreport how much calories we actually consume. But at the end of the day, if you are not with those three issues, and you cannot lose weight, it is because you are simply overeating. Hopefully this video has helped you guys, and if you want to know how to lose 30 pounds in 30 days with all the tactics, everything you need to, how to do it, what you need to do exactly, what's the workout, so what is it exactly that you need to do for this to work, I have a video right here. This video will help you, and of course I'm the guy in that video helping you out, so I'll see you in that video. Peace out, guys.